What diseases are related to which character traits? Today we are going to talk about what senses we have and what types of diseases they cause if they are not working properly. We are going to study it more deeply. Let's start with the second point. Let me remind you that previously we were talking about our senses and the fact that they have a subtle energy nature. This means they can be materially fixed somehow, but modern devices cannot do this, because their nature is subtler than even the leptin level, which has now been discovered by scientists. Therefore, if someone says that they can determine how a person's senses work, it is just a mistake. Scientists can only detect the most gross physical energies at the level of nerve impulses in the body. All modern diagnostic scientific devices are based on this. Even the Vol method does not go beyond the wave impulses coming from nerve tissues. Human senses surround our body like tentacles. All of them are connected to our mind only, not to our body. There is also a subtle energy body that consists of the mind and intelligence. Senses are part of the mind. The subtlest element is the false ego. False ego can fill the mind, intelligence, and senses. It can fill everything. Senses can connect with various objects. They fill them with their power and get attached to them. The most amazing thing is that memory is the power of the mind. The mind with its power can direct some sense, let's say, the sense of sight or the sense of hearing or tactile sense, towards some object and remember it. At the moment of remembering, there will be contact with this object again, contact will occur. But the mind has a tendency to unite and synthesize. For example, let's say we bought a matchbox. When we remember a matchbox, we don't remember this particular one. We just remember in general the power, the energy of all matchboxes at once, and there is contact with this energy. If we're talking about a relative, it means when we remember our relative, the senses directly contact them. Memory pushes, moves this subtle energy. It finds this relative like tentacles and triggers our memories. Therefore, we remember a deceased person differently than a living one because you can't find a deceased person nearby anymore, so their image is blurred. It becomes different. Who has encountered this phenomenon? Raise your hands. Who has felt that when a person dies, it's very difficult to remember? Are there such people? One person here, 2, 3. It's harder and not immediately, after some time. It becomes harder to remember after about 2 or 3 weeks. Suddenly it becomes difficult to remember. Do you know why this happens? Because the soul of this person already leaves this place. It leaves after about 40 days. So the subtle energy body leaves together with the soul. The subtle energy body goes into the next birth. That's why it's already difficult to remember a person, because the subtle energy body has gone. Contact is always made with the subtle energy body. That's why there's a problem remembering the deceased, but it's not difficult to remember an alive person. Wherever they are on earth, if you have a close relationship with them, you will be able to remember them very well, and this memory can be positive or negative. A positive memory gives us health, a negative memory gives us suffering. So senses are like tentacles. They can come into contact with objects that are good or bad for us. Although the objects are basically the same, we perceive them differently depending on what they bring us. If they bring us pleasure, then they are good for us. And if they bring us suffering, they are bad for us. That's why it's important to know what to contact, because there are objects that bring only suffering to us. There are objects that bring only suffering. There are objects that bring only happiness. What object brings only happiness? God. God brings only happiness. And what brings only suffering? Many things, right? Only suffering is brought by deception, the desire to live at someone's expense, anger, and so on. Only misery. Therefore, we should strive to contact spiritual power and try to leave contact with those forces that bring us suffering. We have 5 senses through which we perceive the world. They are the senses of perception that are called Jnanendriya. Jnanendriya means senses designed for cognition. With the help of these senses, we cognize the world. It means everything that exists in this world is intended for our cognition, and we learn good or bad by contact with everything around us. So let's start with the sense of hearing. Hearing has the subtlest nature. The sense of hearing contacts deeper structures than the mind. Hearing contacts a person's intelligence and even penetrates deeper than intelligence. Hearing is the subtlest structure of human perception. Hearing transmits the most destructive or the most creative force that exists. Therefore, the strongest healing and the strongest destruction occurs through hearing. So you should make a definite conclusion immediately that you just cannot listen to a bad person. You have to move away from them and try not to listen, because information through hearing will penetrate into the very heart. You know this perfectly well. When someone speaks, there can be a very bad result. It's impossible to get rid of the sound of these words. If a person speaks with some very cruel feeling, then this word goes into the heart, and then it puts a lot of pressure on the consciousness. Therefore, we must avoid conflicts, and if we see such bad contact beside ourselves, we must wish as much happiness as possible to that person and try to get rid of this bad contact. Otherwise, it will destroy us. What does contact mean? This means that through hearing to the very heart, to the very intelligence, the power of what we are told reaches us. This power is stronger than the mind, so when we have heard something, it is impossible to resist, even by the power of the mind. We cannot conclusively prove to ourselves that this is not true. If we encounter something distasteful or hear unpleasant words, we will inevitably suffer from it. One can only shield themselves from vulgarity and coarse language through prayer. Great saints believe that foul language is as close to death as one can get. When a person uses foul language, they place themselves next to death. This is one of the most dangerous things that exist in nature, so we must approach it with the utmost seriousness. On the flip side, there is healing through hearing, which is the most profound form of healing. Several key factors must align for this healing to be effective. The therapeutic value is heightened if these conditions are met. The first factor is that the sound must emanate from a pure person. This means that all qualities of the person are transmitted through sound. It turns out that voice is not just vibrations of the vocal cords. A person's voice emanates from the heart and reflects everything within them. Through their voice, one can discern everything about a person, truly everything. While I can't claim to know everything solely from a voice, most illnesses can indeed be identified. Who among you agrees with this? Have you ever experienced this over the phone? Some have heard and some agree that this exists. It exists in nature. The voice has enormous informative power. The greatest informative power is found in a person's voice because it originates from the heart. Depending on their purity, a person's voice can become cleaner or more polluted. If a person becomes more impure, their voice becomes polluted. If a person becomes purer, their voice becomes cleaner. It's impossible to conceal anything once a person begins to speak. Everything is revealed immediately. There's a saying, when can you discern a fool from a learned person? At what moment is this distinction made? When they open their mouths. Once they speak, everything becomes clear. We must recognize that nothing can be hidden. We cannot conceal anything. When we speak, the vibrations of our voice directly reach another person's heart. Through our voice, they subconsciously learn everything about us. For instance, a wife knows everything about her husband when he comes home and asks for food. She instantly knows his state of being. She assesses his mood and her own stance towards him based on his demeanor, regardless of his activities during the day. It's impossible to hide anything. Everything is revealed thanks to the power of voice. This is the power of voice. When a pure person speaks, there will be healing power. A pure person possesses a pure intelligence. When they speak, their intellectual power is transmitted to the listener's consciousness, leading to mental purification. When a pure person, a saint, a holy person, utters prayers, not only the power of their intelligence, but also the divine power coming from the repetition of the holy names of God enters. The name of God is powerful in itself. If a person utters God's name with deep faith, God himself is present within that name. God is not separate from his name. He is inherently present in it. Since ancient times, the pronunciation of the holy name has existed as the greatest power that gives a person happiness. When a person pronounces the holy name of God, they are instantly purified. Many sinful reactions burn instantly. Such is the power because it goes through sound. Scriptures state that listening to a pure, holy person recite prayers can eliminate the reactions of countless bad deeds accumulated over lifetimes within a fraction of a second. Although finding pure saints is challenging in today's world, the Scriptures affirm that such a listening experience brings instant purification and profound understanding. They immediately know everything, all knowledge, when listening to such a prayer. Therefore, there is a custom of visiting holy places. People visit holy places in order to encounter a pure person at least once in their life. Pure people live in pure places. Hearing their prayers can cleanse one of numerous sins and impart spiritual knowledge to the heart simply through listening. It's remarkably straightforward. The deepest and most potent healing comes from listening to holy names recited by a pure person. We have a recording of such a person. When we wish happiness to all, it plays. I know this person. He resides in a holy place and has devoted himself to temple life for over 15 years. He rarely leaves the temple premises, except for occasional necessities. He eats once a day and mostly chants God's holy names. When he sings, everyone is moved to tears of joy, such is the profound power of his voice. I have witnessed this firsthand. You can experience it yourself. Listen and assess. Initially, some may find the voice irritating. This irritation may arise from sinful reactions surfacing. But after a few days, you will experience a unique sense of joy and extraordinary pleasure from listening to this person. The strongest healing comes through hearing. We need to be very selective in who we listen to. It's very simple to determine who to listen to and who not to. The key is not to rely on logic, but to follow your heart. If your heart perceives impurity, it is best not to listen. If it feels joy, then it is worth listening to. If the heart feels joy from what it hears, then you should listen. The mind may resist, but the heart hears joy. The mind might say, "No, this is bad. I do everything differently. Why isn't this the way I do it? So this must be bad." False ego kicks in. We have described this mechanism with you. So the sense of hearing, through it occurs the strongest and deepest healing. While the external results of this healing may not be immediately visible, the root cause of the disease can be eradicated right away. Although external symptoms may take time to disappear, the internal healing process is rapid and impactful. Healing through hearing is subtle. It might seem like nothing has changed outwardly, but the internal subtle plane of the person undergoes significant transformation. After healing through hearing, the next most powerful form of healing is through touch, tactile sensitivity. We must be cautious about who touches us. It is vital to avoid contact with those who could negatively affect us. Touch connects with the outer layer of a person's intelligence. Contact with the subtle sphere of intelligence occurs through touch. Spiritual teachers, in order to give the power of intelligence to their disciples, simply touch the center of thought. This center is located on the forehead. Healing often occurred in this manner. For instance, Jesus Christ would heal by touching a person's forehead with his right hand. The person would be instantly healed. Seraphim of Sarov and many saints from other traditions performed similar acts. I know numerous miraculous healings are documented in Ayurveda and the Vedas, accomplished in exactly this manner. Touch holds significant importance, especially in healing practices. When one person touches another, they transmit their life energy. This means that the movement of life energy within another person's body occurs through touch. There are many aspects we don't fully understand. For instance, we might not be aware that walking barefoot in a sacred place allows the dust touched by the feet of holy persons to become imbued with their spiritual energy. Because skin contact occurred, the soles of a person's feet contain all their positive and negative actions that ever existed. If you touch the feet of a holy person and bring them to your forehead, there's an instant transfer of all their positive power. All their devout actions are transmitted. In India, people often rush to touch the feet of holy figures to absorb their sacred energy. They do this eagerly to connect with the divine power of their actions. Conversely, coming into contact with someone of bad character can transfer their negative energy to you. If we walk barefoot in their footsteps, for example, we can absorb their negative energy and become befouled ourselves. If we touch them directly with our hands, it would be even more detrimental. Therefore, the act of touching is profoundly significant and should be approached with care. So it makes sense to walk barefoot in holy places and touch pure individuals. So, as a result of contact, there is a movement of life energy in the body, changes in the movement of life energy. Practices like Qigong are designed to transmit life energy. In Qigong, hands move gracefully through the air, drawing subtle energy into the body. When hands move through the air, describing certain figures, they move very smoothly. A person breathes during this time, and they transmit the subtle nature of the air inside their body. Depending on how their mind is tuned, they will receive one or another power of consciousness from themselves. If a person is simply focused on the air, they will receive nothing but air. If a person is focused on God while breathing, they will receive divine power. Similarly, the movement of air occurs when we repeat something. If we repeat profanity, our life energy contacts our false ego, and it befouls everything around us. A person loses their intelligence. The person who hears profanity loses their intelligence. Their power of intelligence becomes polluted. Therefore, those people who use foul language are enemies of civilization. They befoul, so the sound is transmitted through hearing. But the person who pronounces this movement of life energy themselves, when they speak, their life energy comes into contact with various membranes, with lung tissues. And this movement, the touch of air, causes a process of transmitting subtle energy. This is very difficult to explain. But we must understand that life energy is different from the air that we breathe. Life energy is something else. Life energy is subtler and more refined than any known energy processes. The soul resides in the heart area. It is balanced by 5 primarily life flows in the body. There are 5 energies that move up and down. One of them moves upward, the second moves everything downward, the third connects everything in the body, the fourth centralizes all energy, bringing everything to the center. And the fifth is general, connecting us with the surrounding world. Actually, it's rather the first one that connects. Thus, there are 5 such life flows in which the soul is in a suspended state of equilibrium. No external force, even an atomic explosion, can disturb this balance. Only when the soul itself sees that there's nothing more to do in this body, then it leaves the body. There are 7 gates through which the soul can exit the body. These are chakras. You know what chakras are, right? And depending on which chakra it exits through, it can end up in hell if it exits through the lower center. If a person was only concerned with lower needs throughout their life, only eating, mating, defending, and sleeping, if they weren't interested in anything else, then their soul exits through the lower center and ends up in hell. Those with higher aspirations might remain on this planet or transition to other realms. A person engaged in self-realization may ascend to higher planets. The fully purified soul ascends beyond the material universe into the spiritual realm through the highest center. They leave to the spiritual world through this zone and never return to the material world. This transition occurs through the life flows. When the soul remains in the body, it stays anchored by these flows, unaffected by external disturbances. It is through these 5 life flows that such movement of the soul occurs when it leaves the body. When it doesn't leave the body, it always stays in one place and nothing can move it. Because it has life flows of energy, and the soul itself has a more subtle nature than anything that exists in this world. Even an atomic explosion cannot shake it. And only when it sees that there's nothing more for it to do in this body, then it will exit to where it's supposed to go. Therefore, the purity of these life flows is a very important thing for our health, and the purity of these life flows depends on the purity of a person's intelligence. Because these life flows have a strong connection with intelligence, and therefore we must purify our intelligence with perfect knowledge. By purifying our health, we enhance our overall happiness and ensure success in all areas of our lives. When we achieve this balance, everything aligns harmoniously and favorably for us. If we don't purify our intelligence, then our life flows are very dirty, polluted, and function poorly. Thus, a person's health is disrupted. The next sense is the sense of sight. The sense of sight is directly connected to the mind, and tactile sensitivity is connected to the energy of air, while hearing is connected to the energy of ether. There are 5 fundamental material elements: ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Of these, ether is the most subtle, followed by the more tangible air. Fire is even coarser. Fire is connected with a person's mind. The mind itself has a fiery quality, connected to both the sun and the moon. The moon cools the mind, bringing tranquility at night, whereas the sun energizes and activates it during the day. As the sun influences us during daylight hours, our minds become more stimulated and dynamic. Through our eyes, this fire energy is both absorbed and emitted. Therefore, when a person looks at another person, they can burn with a glance. Do you know how people burn with a glance? Through the mind. When a person looks at another person with an inflamed gaze, the other person gets a sensation of being burned. They start feeling unwell. If a person has a very strong gaze, they can even move objects. This is a crude material force. It doesn't mean that they have a very strong fiery mind. Rather, it is a crude material force that moves objects. But a true pure mind produces a very pure gaze. So when you look into the eyes of a saint with a purified mind, you will see an enlightened gaze. You see that this person is very good. Their gaze is pure and bright, like that of an innocent child. Therefore, we must purify our mind. If we look at the sun at sunrise and chant the holy names of God at this time, we will come in contact with the power of the sun and will be purifying our mind in this way. The mind is purified through the power of fire. A person who looks at the sun purifies their mind and is cured of almost all diseases. They purify their senses, as all the senses are connected to the mind. but the greatest influence on the mind comes through the gaze. Therefore, if a person doesn't want their mind to be led astray and wants to keep their mind to themselves, they shouldn't look at random things. They should control where they look. When they watch a pornographic film and see the opposite sex naked, they come into contact with the energy of another body. When a person is in such an animalistic state, their mind and senses become attached to this animalistic state. They think that this is the best thing that exists in this life, to watch pornographic films and imagine how it all happens. In this way, the mind is becoming befouled by the power of false ego. A person's mind becomes dark, like an animal's mind. All this happens through the gaze. Through the gaze, a person absorbs this power of befoulment into their consciousness, and their consciousness becomes corrupted, so they can't think about anything else except the opposite sex. All their attention is focused on this. Thus, undoubtedly, they are born as an animal in the next life, because only animals think constantly about the opposite sex. Humans should think about higher things. They should think about how to live on, how to purify themselves. Do you know why one is born as a human? To purify themselves. This is the only life form in which a person can consciously purify their existence, ascend to higher planets, and even reach the spiritual world. Thanks to the human form of life, this is possible. Depending on how we use this rare human form of life, we achieve different results as a consequence. To cure our diseases, it's enough to simply look at the object that brings health. You can look at an image of God drawn by a holy person. This is how we purify our mind. The mind and all senses of a person are purified. The senses are also purified by the fire of the sun. The sun is the energy of happiness descending to the earth. Therefore, the word radost, joy in Russian, means Ra, the sun, and Da, to give. Ra translates as sun from ancient languages, and Da translates as to give. So Radha means to give sun, to give joy. Joy means giving sun, giving happiness. Therefore, a person rejoices when their mind is filled with the solar power of happiness. And so, the person who respects the sun is happy. They will be in a state of happiness. The sun gives happiness to the whole world, to the entire universe. It gives the power of happiness. But people who are in a state of aggression get sunburned, suffer sunstrokes, and feel overwhelmed by the sun. That's why modern doctors say it's harmful to be in the sun. Harmful. Why is it harmful to be in the sun? Because the sun comes into contact with our bad nature, igniting a fire, since joy relentlessly battles against evil. Therefore, when we have too much evil inside, our contact with the sun becomes negative, and in principle everyone has quite a lot of evil. This is why people with more sinful actions are born in northern countries. People with fewer sinful actions are born in sunnier countries where there is more sunlight and more happiness. In sunnier countries, people feel more joy and happiness. If they commit more sinful actions in sunny countries, they suffer more from these. People who live in more northern countries experience less happiness and less suffering because their bad actions don't immediately cause purification. For them, purification happens later. People in sunny countries purify faster. People in northern countries purify more slowly and don't feel the effects of their bad deeds as strongly. People living in sunny countries quickly feel the negative impact of their bad deeds. But this doesn't mean that everyone should rush to sunny countries, because there they will immediately get sunstroke. Depending on our body, we are assigned different places to live. A person who tries to artificially change their living place will only get diseases. If people want to change their place of living and reach heavenly planets, they don't need to build a flying machine that will take them there, because they don't belong there. There, living beings exist in different, more subtle bodies. We will have nothing to do there, we'll burn up. Therefore, we need to do more good deeds. When we act like this, we become filled with the fiery power of happiness. Happiness has the power of fire, hence we get filled with the fiery power of happiness. Then we will have a more subtle nature in the next birth. In the same way, the fiery power of happiness cures all diseases. In Ayurveda, it is believed that diseases burn away as they are treated with fiery power. Therefore, those who look at the sun in a state of happiness resonate with the sun's power of happiness and burn away all their diseases. If a person looks at the sun without feeling the power of happiness inside, then they clash with the sun and their diseases worsen, which may not end well. Therefore, it is recommended to look at the sun at sunrise before it becomes too powerful, and at sunset as well. In this way, one can connect with the sun's power. In India, many people, when the sun rises, chant the holy names of God and look at the sun, purifying their mind through vision. Therefore, when a person has eaten and has a weak digestive fire, they can look at the sun and improve digestion. If someone has strong digestive fire, they should wash their eyes with water after eating, and this reduces the digestive fire. Such advice comes from Ayurveda. Sometimes the mind overflows with fire when one is not in a state of happiness, but in contact with the sun. Sun energy can also come from people. That is, fire is transmitted through the mind of other people. Sometimes good fire is transmitted, sometimes bad. If someone is angry with us or shouts at us angrily, they transmit bad fire. When we socialize with such people only, we become overwhelmed with impure fire, and our mind becomes restless. When the mind becomes restless, a person can be soothed by the cooling power of the moon. To do this, they need to sleep in a very good state of consciousness. Simply turning on spiritual music for the whole night will fill your body with the power of calmness. This happens because such music will purify the atmosphere and help you connect with the power of the moon. Spiritual music is a very good and effective method. Is everything clear about the mind? The mind interacts with all the other senses. The mind interacts with both hearing and touch, processing everything through itself. However, while vision stays within the mind, hearing and touch go deeper, and vision doesn't extend beyond the mind's surface. As a result, a person is affected more profoundly by hearing than by sight. However, it is important to maintain self-control in all aspects, including touch, sight, and hearing. We need to purify our senses. Now here's the question. What kind of person can truly find happiness? Does someone become instantly happy without any effort? No. Perceptions are polluted, senses are impure. Such a person cannot look at the sun with the right consciousness and won't find true happiness. It's an illusion. Only when a person's senses interact with pure objects, then the senses are cleansed and purified, leading to two types of consciousness. There is the consciousness of a fly and the consciousness of a bee. A bee only wants to come into contact only with honey. It wants nothing else but honey. It doesn't want anything else. We know what the fly comes into contact with. It also strongly desires that. So there are two types of people. Some constantly focus on negativity in their mind, always searching for what's wrong. For example, someone is talking about something good, and one word resonates with their dirty senses. Suppose they hear the word government in a conversation. Immediately their mind associates it with the president. From there, they start recalling all the dirt that has accumulated in their head about the government. This is the consciousness of a fly. Such a person will endure great suffering in this world because their senses come into contact only with negativity. These different types of things that I mentioned may reside in the mind or be manifest in the world. Therefore, we must understand how to avoid these. Yet if you look at people today, about 90% of people are behaving like flies, buzzing around negativity. They do not behave like a bee, but like a fly.
And who is to blame for this?
Others are to blame. We are not to blame for anything. I'm good, and everyone else is bad. Remember, we discussed this mindset before. Good is within, evil is external. This is how a person destined to suffer thinks, because they constantly compare their own goodness with evil of the others around them. But a person who believes that good is external, seeing everything as a learning experience intended for their education. They understand that all the circumstances around us are God's way of guiding us to change. If a husband has good qualities, it's because of our good deeds. That is, through our good actions we establish good contact with him and thus experience happiness. Therefore, a person's happiness and suffering depend on their deeds. It is up to each person to choose these certain circumstances for themselves. Therefore, evil is always within. These are consequences of our bad actions from the past, embedded in our hearts and polluting our hearts. They pollute the mind, the intelligence, and the senses. So I will answer my own question. A person who engages their senses only with pure objects and avoids impure objects always remains in a state of happiness. This is because they cleanse their intelligence. Their intelligence advises them, don't engage with this, don't dwell on this, it's just foolishness. You will gain no happiness, wisdom, or health from this, absolutely nothing, just befoulment, and that's it. Gradually, such a person changes the way their senses interact with their mind. When a sense tries to drag them into dirt, the mind reports to the intelligence. It says, again, the sense of sight is craving to watch pornography today at 10 in the evening. The mind reports, there will be a pornographic film today, a favorite one, very tempting. The mind sends this message, but intelligence responds, If you watch this, you will become befouled and will be born as an animal in the next life. Because after watching this film, your thoughts will be no better than those of a dog. This will bring you no closer to happiness, only suffering. That's what intelligence says. But the mind protests. It's so enjoyable to sit down and relax. After all, I'm tired. I've been working all day. I need to relax, rest, and watch a good movie. That's what the mind says, while intelligence says, go ahead, be a pig, sit down and watch. But don't expect anything good to come out of you after. That's what intelligence says bluntly. But the mind insists, I will grunt and sit down. That is, the mind is even ready to be a pig. Intelligence says, grunt and sit down. And the mind is frustrated because intelligence is actually against it. So the mind tries to persuade the intelligence. It says, actually this is all nonsense. What we heard in these lectures is all nonsense. No one else talks about this. We don't hear it anywhere, so calm down and forget about it. This is how the rejection of knowledge occurs. People reject knowledge because of false attachments. This happens at the moment of lust. When overwhelmed by lust, people reject knowledge. They get attached to the object of their desire, and in doing so, are willing to discard all their knowledge at once. A single negative feeling can consume a person's entire being and completely change their whole life. But if a person rejects the bad film, they remain unsatisfied, pacing back and forth, wondering, well, now what? What should I do? Well, I'm not going to watch this now, and then what? Did it make me feel better? It didn't make me feel better. I'm walking from corner to corner, wondering what to do and feeling unsettled. There's no relief. I have worked all day. I'm tired. There's a good movie on, and I have nothing to do. So before abandoning bad habits, a person should cultivate good ones. This is the greatest wisdom that exists. When a person acquires a taste for honey, and not just the honey from jars, but the sweetness found in pure actions and deeds, when they find joy in spiritual music, in studying something pure and moral, in associating with pure virtuous people, when they develop a taste for these activities, when they draw something sublime, compose uplifting poems, when they engage in positive activities, when they do something good with their hands or eyes, or immerse themselves in other positive activities, they develop a different taste. When they do this, they purify themselves, their senses become purer. Such a person can easily reject a bad movie on TV, not by sheer willpower or prohibition, but by directing themselves to something meaningful. So how can a person become a vegetarian? How to stop eating meat, the food that is associated with the heavy forces of killing, which plunges our mind into depression? It can only be done in one way, if we learn how to cook without meat and learn delicious recipes without meat, which exist. Vegetarian food is richer because it's cooked by intelligent people, not those whose intelligence is poisoned by meat food, but those whose intelligence is enlightened. Therefore, such food is more diverse and tasty and is easier and faster to cook. You just need to start studying this. We must understand how we should communicate with our senses. We need to distinguish between the consciousness of a bee, we will read a whole lecture about this, and the consciousness of a fly. We should strive to think positively and to seek good in what gives real happiness. We should look for this good. In the beginning, we must force ourselves because we have no interest in any of this. We must force ourselves to listen to sublime music and to communicate with really good people. If the heart suggests that there is nothing good here, then it's better not to communicate. The heart is the criterion. So we understood a little bit about what sight is. We understood that the sense of vision is connected with fire. Next comes taste, the sense of taste. This sense is connected with the energy of water, and the sense of taste is located on the tongue. The deepest sense is the sense of hearing. It gives the most understanding of things in this world, but the sense of taste is a person's strongest sense. If a person has learned to control the tongue, they can control all their other senses. What does it mean to control the tongue? It means eating what is not befouled, in other words, food that is not associated with killing. But the best control of the tongue is to eat blessed food, prepared for God in pure consciousness. This food is called mercy or prasad. A person who eats such food purifies their sense of taste and thus achieves very great progress in controlling their mind. So, the sense of taste is located on the meridian of action. It means the tongue is located on the meridian of action. Here it is, the front central meridian. Everything related to our actions, all organs associated with our actions are located on this meridian. Here is the center of the mind, the center of human pain, and the center of optimism. These are also actions, and whether we are optimistic or not, we can influence through our optimism. If we are pessimistic, we also make everyone around us pessimistic. If we think badly, we also affect everyone. If we are stubborn, it means our will is not working right. We also have a bad effect on everyone. Next comes a person's breathing, their speech. Speech is also a very powerful action. You know about this now. Next, we have the stomach. And when we eat what we shouldn't, it's also an action. All of this is located in the center of the meridian of action. Next, we have the reproductive organs. They are also associated with our actions. Therefore, the main actions of a person happen along this meridian, and it begins with the tongue. That's why when a person eats what they shouldn't, everything that lies below is automatically befouled. That's why depending on what a person eats, you can easily determine what they are like. We can say the same about animals. Do you know what kind of character a wolf has? How can you tell if it's a wolf or a dog? Sometimes they look very similar. A dog can look like a wolf. How can you tell if it's a wolf or a dog? A dog won't maul anyone. A dog only eats carrion. But a wolf will run and kill someone. So, you can determine which category the animal belongs to by its appetite, by its sense of taste, and what it prefers to eat. In the same way, you can determine which category a person belongs to. If they like to eat what is associated with killing, then what category are they in? Not a very good one. If they like to eat what is not associated with killing, food that is intended as food for humans. For example, vegetables, fruits, and dairy, it means they have a good nature, they are good people, they have good qualities. One patient came up to me and said that she gets up at 4 a.m. and soon she is going to get up at 3. You should know that you don't need to do this because it leads to a bad result. When a person quickly fires up, then they burn out badly. This burnout occurs as a result of overloading oneself. Nothing should be artificial. A person should not get up later than 6 a.m. This will be more or less normal. They will keep themselves in a relatively healthy state. As a person engages more in spiritual practices, gradually they become happier. They will naturally want to get up a little earlier and earlier. This happens naturally, so you should not torture yourself. As for food, you need to immediately stop eating meat. It's essential for those who are already being treated with stones. These are my terms and conditions because otherwise their treatment will not be effective, and those who are not yet being treated should just start eating vegetarian food, and they won't want to eat meat anymore. You just won't be able to look at it because these dishes give joy as soon as you eat them. How can you check if the dish is in pure goodness or not? If it's in pure goodness, you'll want to laugh and talk about something good after eating it. If the food is in passion, you'll want to argue after eating it. You'll throw the spoon and start shouting immediately. If the food is prepared in degradation, you'll want to sit more comfortably on the couch after a meal. Turn on the TV and look at it with a very deep gaze, absolutely deep, with indescribable depth. This gaze doesn't even move. Or just fall asleep immediately without watching TV. Just lie down and fall asleep right away. After such food, you want to sleep. The mind goes into the stomach. A person becomes so kind, they agree with everything because they are not thinking straight at this time. So the wife comes up to her husband when he has eaten and asks him about everything. Is that right? Yes, he says, that's right. Everything is good. There are no problems. We're going to be fine. And he falls asleep on the last word. That's why there are different ways of cooking. No matter how deliciously meat is prepared, you will still want to sleep after it. This food is in degradation. Therefore, we must somehow wake up so that we don't want to sleep too much. We need to wake up to have more happiness in our head. A person can feel happiness in different parts of the body. Some feel it with their head, some in other ways. We must learn to feel happiness with our head, then there will be much more happiness. I assure you, life will undoubtedly be filled with joy. But it's a little hard to do, because you have to think in this case. Some think, let the horse think, it has a big head, but this isn't right. The ability to think doesn't depend on the size of the head, but on the purity of the mind. Thus, the tongue is controlled very simply. You need to feed it deliciously and on time. And then through the tongue, the taste is purified and a person acquires good taste. What does good taste mean? It means that they eat what they should. When a person eats food offered to God or blessed food, if they eat food that is prepared in pure goodness without meat, it means there is a correct mixing of spices with products. If there are the right combination of products, then such a person feels happy while eating and feels that it is extraordinarily delicious. They begin to squeal with joy as soon as they have eaten. When they eat this food, they are very surprised. Understanding of purity can come sometimes through the tongue, such a realization of purity. They try blessed food and say, wow, this is awesome what they eat. They immediately become very cheerful and laugh afterwards. Somebody asked me about drug addicts, how to treat drug addicts, I can tell you. This experience was done by Srila Prabhupada, a saint who came to America from India and was the first who started talking about the Vedas. He went to the most disadvantaged area. The first thing he did was going to the most disadvantaged district in New York. He began feeding drug addicts with pure, blessed food, and hundreds of hippies who were there at that time gave up drugs thanks to his influence. People's taste changed immediately, and he offered them to chant the holy name together with him, and that was all. They quit drugs very quickly. This experience was documented by all medical organizations. That means that this experience of collective chanting provides an opportunity to quickly get rid of drug addiction. I know many guys who stopped taking drugs thanks to the fact that they started eating blessed food and chanting the holy name of God. Therefore, you can advise those who use drugs, if they are completely hopeless, to use this method. You can read a book called The Life of Srila Prabhupada. It describes his story. It describes how he saved all these drug addicts. It's very interesting to read. Who has read it? Raise your hand. Some people have read it. So you can also read it. It's a very interesting experience. That means it's possible to save a person through food, as it turns out. So we have talked about the tongue. If a person purifies their taste, they can get rid of all the false impulses of the organs that are in the lower part of the body. It's a very delicate, good method. You can control yourself this way. You don't need to grit your teeth for this like Adriano Celentano chopping wood in the movie. Therefore, you just need to know what to eat, and this is a very good method to control all the organs we have. And next, the next sense is the sense of smell. Smell is associated with the power of earth, just as taste is associated with water. You know that if something doesn't get wet, it won't have a taste. That's why we constantly have saliva in our mouth. People who don't have enough saliva don't sense the taste of things well. Taste is only felt in an aqueous environment, and smell is felt when there's something to smell. Right? When there's some dust. Meaning it's an earthy environment. The earthy environment always has a smell. Contact occurs through smell. So treatment with smells is treatment at the most coarse level, meaning our physical body. For example, aromatherapy. If this method is used correctly, it can change the structure of the physical body. And all other methods that are associated with other senses, for example, with the sense of taste or the sense of sight, they treat a person even more deeply. But if you don't treat a deeper, subtle energy body, then physical treatment doesn't give a very good result. It only gives a temporary result. Therefore, aromatherapy gives such a very quick result, but not a lasting one. If a person is treated through taste, that means they are treated with some herbal solutions, then they are treating their aqueous environment. The aqueous environment contains nerve tissues, human hormones, so it can affect the nervous system through these solutions and treat the nervous system. It can treat and restore hormonal functions, but it cannot treat the mind. Therefore, if you're being stuffed with pills and you think they can change your mind when a person is suffering from a mental illness, they can only stop its activity because they block the nervous system. The nervous system is blocked, the person stops thinking because there's nothing to think with, the head is blocked. But the mind doesn't change in this process. The state of the mind remains the same. Therefore, you can't cure the mind through medication. The mind can only be cured through sight, or through contact with a person, or through hearing. The strongest method of treatment is treating the mind through hearing. Treatment through sight is the weakest method of treating the mind. But through smell and taste, you can't cure the mind. It's useless. Therefore, we must understand what we want to treat and how. This is very important. Therefore, treatment methods differ from each other, depending on which sense organ they contact. That's why aromatherapy exists. And by the way, befoulment coming from subtle entities is transmitted through smell. They have such a strong body consisting of material elements. That means these various spirits and ghosts have an ethereal body. When you change the smell in the room, these ghosts immediately run away from this place. If there's a bad smell in the room, it means they live there. It's 100% sure. When they are given such an opportunity, they influence our consciousness. Therefore, a person who has a bad smell in their apartment gives ghosts the opportunity to live there. And how to get rid of this? Change the smell. That's right. Maybe there are such incense sticks. They are made from pure herbs in pure goodness. These are saffron, rose. There are herbs that are in pure goodness. When they are lit, their smoke changes the smell in the room. And thus it rids us of contact with bad entities that feed on impure forces. When we think badly, they immediately begin to contact our senses, and they begin to live in this way. This is their kind of activity. And therefore, if we don't give them ground for existence, then they won't be able to contact us in any way. This is how the cleansing of the apartment happens. If anyone is interested, it's very simple. You need to light incense periodically. There are other cleansing methods, we'll talk about them later. You need to play good music constantly, so that cleansing goes through hearing, and there shouldn't be any portraits hanging on the walls. Now, many people hang all sorts of junk, portraits of people who cultivate in themselves bad qualities. Therefore, when all this is hung, it gives very bad information for the sight, and through sight the human mind is befouled, and bad thoughts come to their head. Thus, you need to try to maintain the correct environment in the apartment as well, so that all sorts of junk doesn't hang. I had such a case. One patient complained to me that everyone in her apartment was experiencing a terrible mental state. And they've been experiencing this state for 1.5 years and don't know what to do with it. It's like you don't even want to come home. They've already decided to stay longer at work. When I entered this apartment, I felt an extraordinary state. I was terrified. I started looking for sources and saw a portrait, an image that the husband brought from Mexico. He hung this terrible portrait there, and they have a custom there. This is called black magic. Bad karma doesn't actually disappear. They only temporarily free themselves from the bad in this way, but it returns. With the help of certain rituals, they drive all the evil that exists into such portraits and sell them to Europeans who don't understand anything about the existence of subtle things. And then a person hangs it on the wall, and they get all the negativity that a whole tribe got rid of through this portrait. They dumped all negativity on one family. So don't hang all sorts of portraits in your apartment. Nothing good will come of it, I assure you. Because you instantly contact this person when you look at photographs. And when you look at a photograph, it will gradually change with the change in the character of this person. When they die, it will also change. You will see it differently all the time. If you are observant, you will notice. So you need to know such things and take them seriously. Therefore, you should hang more pictures of saints at home, and it will be easier for you to live then. So, let's talk a little bit. Did we mention appendicitis? No? Appendicitis occurs most often in childhood, and a child can even die from this disease. A child has an incorrect perception, or parents make them sick by their influence on the child's will. So when they infringe the will, appendicitis occurs as a result of physical, mental, or emotional strain, as a result of fear, tension in decision-making, disruption of sleep routine. All this affects a person through the right hemisphere of brain, the hemisphere of will, and this leads to severe tension. The appendix is responsible for human activity. So it is located in the intestine and protects the entire intestine, the organ of activity, and therefore when a person violates this type of activity, the appendix suffers immediately. Inflammation of the appendix occurs, and doctors don't know that most often it has a mental nature, so they look for some other inflammation there. And inflammation then occurs, of course, as there are enough bacteria in the intestines. If the inflammatory process comes from the mind, bacteria immediately start to settle there. Acute appendicitis begins, which can kill a child. Therefore, parents kill them with harsh words. Therefore, we must control our children. We can punish them, but there should be no aggression in our minds. What affects appetite? What causes loss of appetite? This occurs as a result of apathy. When does apathy occur? What is apathy? It means that our center of optimism has dimmed a little. Such a person becomes a bit gloomy, and apathy immediately stops energy from entering the stomach. As a result, appetite decreases. It decreases as a result of distrust. So, when a person doesn't trust everything around them, they have 2 appetite disorders, overeating or loss of appetite, depending on the type of distrust. If they don't trust feeling pessimism, it means their appetite decreases. If they don't trust in an active state, they start to overeat, they constantly want to eat. Lack of food culture means a person eats not what brings happiness, but what brings suffering. Then a lack of appetite can occur. Let's say a person, especially when they are already suffering from severe diseases such as cancer, suddenly doesn't want to eat. Such people immediately refuse meat. Doctors have a diagnosis of malignant growths in the body. If a person spontaneously refuses meat, they don't want to eat meat. This means that they are already sick with cancer. They can no longer eat it because a person who eats meat will never be cured of cancer, even if treated with stones, meaning the most powerful methods. Cancer is a force that passes through a person's damaged, subtle energy body, damaged, subtle energy. This is the power of our bad actions through which a subtle entity enters which begins to control our body. Cells begin to multiply there spontaneously under its power. That means a new organism is born, as if from us, as if we are born inside ourselves. This is such a sinful organism. Well, we lived a sinful life, and therefore it's very difficult to cure cancer. It's necessary to kill the organism within the organism, and when a person eats meat, they feed this force. And then it's impossible to kill it. I tried, but it doesn't bring any results in such cases. Loss of appetite causes disruption of the daily routine. When a person eats late at night, their sense of taste gradually decreases. Appetite decreases from laziness, sometimes increases. And from fear too. During the war, many people lost their appetite from fear. What causes excessive appetite? Greed. When a person wants to buy something, fails to buy it, they go home and simply overeat. There's no chance to somehow change their fate for the better. They just overeat and go to sleep. Also, passion causes excessive appetite. When a person is strongly connected with objects by feeling, they rush about, passion arises, so they constantly want to eat because all their receptors are excited. Envy causes excessive appetite. When they envy someone, they constantly want to eat. Envy deprives a person of joy. When a person envies, they deprive themselves of joy the most. Envy is a very hidden thing. It's difficult to understand. Simply, if we don't like some person, most often we just envy them. We need to figure it out. Most often this happens due to envy, then appetite greatly increases or can be completely ruined. Fear also causes excessive appetite. In need of protection, we defend ourselves from something. Let's say students are taking exams. They defend themselves from their teachers. They start overeating. They start eating and eating, running around during the exam to grab a snack. It's an emotional imbalance when a person is emotionally unbalanced. When their feelings are very strongly connected with sense objects, simply tearing the person apart, those objects do not bring happiness. Now, what are arteries? Arteries are vessels that are associated with active joy, steadfastness, and purposefulness of a person. That means if a person engages in activities that bring joy, they will always have good arteries, they will not be sick. If a person is internally steadfast, and their steadfastness is also correct, this person is in pure goodness. They will never have weak arteries. They will have good blood circulation. When a person is purposeful, they will never be relaxed, apathetic, or sluggish. So they will also have good blood circulation. What causes high blood pressure? The most basic reasons are lack of humility. When a person always tries to resist their life, their energy increases inside. Because they can't give energy to the environment. You remember we said energy goes out into the environment when we repeat, "I wish happiness to everyone." When we say so, energy comes out of us because everyone needs it. Who needs our bad energy? Everyone protects themselves from it, and therefore it stays inside us. It doesn't come out. Therefore, a person's blood pressure increases. If they are surrounded by people, their pressure increases even more, because there is something and someone to clash with. If a person resists everything, their pressure increases very much when they are surrounded by people. In nature, it increases less. But if there are many trees, it also increases. They clash with trees. You can find something to clash with anywhere. If we wish happiness to everyone, then it's very easy to cure hypertension. When a person acts this way, wishes happiness to everyone, they gradually become very kind, and a kind person doesn't get sick, because all their energy gives happiness and everyone wants it. Therefore, their energy always circulates in the body. Stubbornness. When a person is stubborn, they resist everyone. They have inner tension. What causes tension? Fear of society. When a person is afraid of everyone around, it's unpleasant for them. They tense up from fear. What about greed? Greed increases blood pressure. When a person is greedy, blood rushes to their head, they want to have something, the mind gets very excited, fire is released, and pressure increases. Pressure increases from tension. When a person thinks that the more I work, the more happiness there will be. Therefore, they strain and increase pressure because of this. Also, meat eating. Meat is not digested, contamination occurs, and these fatty meat particles are deposited in the vessels. Atherosclerosis appears, which causes an increase of blood pressure. Such vessels are very difficult for blood to penetrate. Inability to rest. What kind of person doesn't know how to rest? The one who doesn't understand what rest is. If a person thinks that rest is sleep, they don't know how to rest. Gradually their sleep becomes poor. When a person rests through joyful work, they sleep very soundly. Therefore, if a person has insomnia, they should be advised to think about something joyful in the evening and work with joy. In this way, they get rid of insomnia. Disruption of sleep routine leads to increased blood pressure. The later a person goes to bed, the higher their blood pressure. The later a person wakes up, the lower their blood pressure. If a person goes to bed late and wakes up late, it means their blood pressure both increases and decreases. That's it. However, when a person wakes up late, their blood pressure can also increase. Low blood pressure stems from pessimism, depression, apathy, and lack of self-confidence. When a person lacks self-confidence, it means they are afraid to do something, to take some action. As a result, they lack the energy that should be allocated for this action, and they constantly have low blood pressure. Their blood pressure decreases because there is little energy in the body, so late waking up causes a decrease in blood pressure. Overeating at night can cause both a decrease and an increase in blood pressure. Arthritis. What causes joints to suffer? Despair. Despair is the main cause of arthritis. Joints suffer from despair, from disappointment. When a person is disappointed in something, there is already a possibility that their joints will hurt. Because joints are the very thing that connects our actions. Everything related to our actions is connected to the joints. But as a result of disappointment, we no longer know what to do. So it affects the connecting link. Disappointment causes this. That means a person who is disappointed loses their ability to act. A person who is in despair also says, I don't know how to do anything. As a result, their joints start to hurt and they can no longer act because their legs hurt. That's it. Therefore, when we don't want to do something, we get this opportunity. Polyarthritis arises from conflict with nature. This is also a kind of despair when a person says, I don't want it to be cold, I want it to be hot, or I don't want it to be hot, I want it to be cold. That's how they talk. In India, they often say, I don't want it to be hot, I want it to be cold. And here, most often they say, I don't want it to be cold, I want it to be hot. But if you tell them, go to Russia, they will say, no way, it's very cold there. And we sometimes like to travel where it's hot. Therefore, problems with joints arise from conflict with the weather. When a person is in a state of kindness, when they are benevolent, love to act kindly, they are never afraid of the weather. This is a sign. A person who is not afraid of the weather is kind. Because they know that everything is meant for their happiness. Cold is for their happiness, and warmth is for their happiness. And also such a person who is not afraid of the weather is not lazy. A lazy person is afraid of the weather, and an angry person is also afraid of the weather. Such people get polyarthritis, joyless work. When a person works without joy, they lose the ability to work, because such work is not needed by anyone. It only brings misfortune, so such a person becomes immobilized. Resentfulness causes polyarthritis because a resentful person hurts everyone around and themselves. And their thoughts also become inactive, and therefore the joints associated with thought also lose mobility. Their thinking becomes stagnant. It stops on one object. When a person is offended, they can't think about anything except the object of their resentment. They can't concentrate on anything. Joints suffer from overwork because if a person doesn't want to use their body for its intended purpose, they toil, work hard, and overexert their body. As a result, they will also get joint disease. Joints suffer from a critical mindset. When we criticize everyone, we are not needed by anyone. Our actions are not needed by anyone either, so we will also get sick from this. Joints also suffer from rough assertiveness. The thyroid gland is connected to a person's feelings. That means the thyroid gland is connected to our emotions. If our emotions are excessively active and our feelings are constantly befouled, then the activity of the thyroid gland increases. If our feelings are excessively disappointed and we become disillusioned, if feelings make us depressed, then the function of the thyroid gland decreases. Therefore, an increase in thyroid function is mainly associated with impudence, when a person is very fussy. For example, in the Samara region where I lived, there are a lot of thyroid diseases. In this zone, many people suffer from an increased thyroid function. And there's such a song, "Oh, Samara town, I'm restless, please calm me down." So, this is a test for thyroid disease incidence. But our doctors think, I'm not against doctors, please don't think that. It's a noble profession. It just so happened that our education was given in a slightly wrong direction. That's it. Therefore, our doctors believe that the thyroid gland suffers because there is not enough iodine in the body, and therefore we need to eat more iodized salt. Well, that's it. It's a joke. One needs to be very sober and understand what causes diseases. What is the cause of baldness? Baldness occurs for two reasons. The first reason is when a person, in general, it's always from tension. When a person excessively gives away their energy, then they go bald. If, for example, a person engages in excessive sexual activity, they can go bald because they give away their energy excessively, and the second reason is excessive thinking. Therefore, you can determine for yourself which category you belong to. Let it remain a secret for others. Does it mean that tanned people are less sinful? Yes, this is undoubtedly so. The more you tan, the fewer sins you have left. I wasn't talking about that. I was saying that a person is born in a place according to their fate. If they are born in a hotter place, it means they have the opportunity to be born there. But even a person born in a hot place can have a more sinful life than a person born in a colder place. That means a person had enough piety to be born in a warm climate, but it doesn't mean that people will live less sinfully there. Therefore, in a cold place, one can become a saint, and in a hot place, one can become a murderer. By the way, much faster than in a cold climate, because the mind gets much more overstimulated there. They receive power from the sun and misuse it. When a person doesn't rejoice in the sun but becomes lazy from the sun, all the energy goes down, and therefore they behave like an animal. That's why tanning is now being developed. Nude beaches are appearing where they walk around and show their power to everyone. That's it. They show what the real beauty of a person is. But in fact, true beauty lies in one's thoughts and actions, in pure, beautiful thoughts and beautiful actions. And such beauty is imprinted on a person's face. That's it. Therefore, it's enough to just open the face. Other parts of the body shouldn't be exposed because it simply causes befoulment. Therefore, a human is the only living being on earth that wears clothes. One simply hides all the bad in oneself so that no one is befouled. That's it. But those who want to be animals, they undress in advance. They can't wait to be born as a dog. Who can prepare blessed food? Blessed food can be prepared by anyone. If they chant the holy name of God, the food becomes blessed. If they cook meat, the food cannot be blessed. Only grain-based food, dairy, vegetables, nuts, greens, everything that is not associated with killing animals can be blessed. The scriptures state that God does not bless food associated with killing animals. Can I keep portraits of deceased relatives in the apartment? It makes sense to hang them on the wall only when you wish them happiness, but it's better not to do it. The connection remains, and it's unknown what life they are having now, what they are doing. If you want to do good for them, you can hang a photo on the wall and wish them happiness. If you bless food, this is a very effective way to free relatives from hell. You prepare blessed food and offer it to the photograph of a relative. On the subtle level, they eat this food and cleanse themselves because they cannot prepare blessed food themselves. Therefore, they can instantly leave hell and be born in the middle planetary systems or in the higher ones. What is valerian for? It treats resentment. When a person takes offense, the heart suffers. Valerian is beneficial, but it's not suitable for everyone. Doesn't love and service to God coincide with love and service to people? It does coincide. A person who waters the root of a tree simultaneously waters all the leaves, twigs, flowers, and everything that exists on this tree. If a person serves God, they immediately serve everyone. People can receive divine power simply by looking at them, touching them, or listening to them. They bring enormous benefit to society. Since there are no pure people now, society doesn't have the possibility to function properly because there's no one to ask for advice. Pure, holy people are only engaged in studying how to live correctly. This is their main goal. In the past, kings consulted with holy people. They knew how to govern because they were holy people. Holy people cannot be bribed. How to distinguish a real holy person from a fake one? A holy person cannot be bribed. They cannot be forced by money to tell a lie. It's easier for them to die than to say something nasty, not the truth. The highest class of people are the saints. The next class is the rulers who govern society. Traders are lower, and workers are the lowest. If holy people do not exist, the ruler doesn't know how to rule properly. Then feudal society comes. That's how our society fell apart. When rulers didn't know how to rule, they began to feud among themselves. They considered themselves holy. Society was divided. It became feudal. When kings don't know how to govern properly, trade is disrupted, and everything falls into chaos. The economy falls into chaos. Then the traders say, "Down with royal power." Bourgeois rule comes, representing the power of traders. When saints advise kings on how to live, everyone lives according to divine laws. When saints stop advising but kings keep ruling, at least there is some order and some authority. When traders rule, laws don't exist. Everything can be bought and sold. Thus there is at least the possibility to buy or sell something. When traders are rejected and the proletariat takes power, it's not even possible to buy or sell anything. Complete chaos ensues. We will destroy the whole world with violence. One who was nothing will become everything. That's exactly what happened. We experienced this. To learn more on the subject of health and healing of the body, please make sure to read my health guide, available for download on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram page. Thank you very much, and see you soon.